It's an introduction to what you're going to be looking at and what you're finding your way around the screen and how to get set up, setting up some basic financial statements and some of the features that are available to you. I'm going to start with a bang just to see how many of you are paying attention and ask a question out of the gate, because our financial reporter is used in two Adagio products. It's used in the Adagio General Ledger, and it's used in Adagio FX, which is just the financial reporter with hooks to Simply Accounting and to QuickBooks as well as to Adagio. So I'm going to ask, first of all, where are you using Adagio? Are you using it in the Adagio General Ledger? And we have two versions of the GL that you might be running, 8.1a or 9.0. 9.0 has been out for a couple of well over a year now and supports multiple years. Adagio FX has been out for many years, so we're just getting up there, getting people voting. Just click on the choice where you're running the financial reporter, and this will give me an idea of where we'll demonstrate the financial reporter the most. You should know it is the same product between Adagio Ledger 8.1 and Adagio FX, and there's just one additional drop down in the 9.0. Okay, so we'll close the poll here and just show you that the majority of you are running Adagio Ledger 9.0a. I guess some of you actually will be running Adagio Ledger 9.0b, a recent upgrade to the product, which we should probably add to that poll question. So, excellent. Well, let's take a look at the material that we're going to cover today. First of all, because there are two separate ways to get to the financial reporter, either through the General Ledger or through Adagio FX, I'll just briefly review how you get the data to the financial reporter. Now, of course, for those of you who are running the General Ledger, you get the data into the General Ledger by entering batches. But if you're using Simply Accounting or QuickBooks or just have access to Adagio FX, then you will have to retrieve the data, and I'll show you that process. But once the data is in the General Ledger, or you have retrieved the data into Adagio FX, then the financial reporters are basically identical. And then we'll show you the toolbar, what's on the toolbar, the financial statement designer, the different options for the buttons, how you get data into the spreadsheet that is the financial reporter, what a formula looks like. And then we'll talk about the layout and different panes that you can show that will allow you to inspect your chart of accounts or the account groups or the departments and set up department ranges and things like that. What a smart sheet is, the commands that you can put in column A, how to use the sample statements that we provide or load a statement from Excel, all of those features that we're going to take advantage of. Next week, there's a continuation of this webinar, the intermediate, which picks up kind of where this webinar lets off and continues on with some of the other features. We'll try and touch on a few advanced concepts here as we do this webinar, but we wanted to just give you a running start at the financial report. So the other question that I have for you, for those of you who are out there in Radio Land, is kind of what experience you have using the financial reporter, because that'll help me out quite a bit. So the question in front of you is, have you previously used the financial reporter? So for some of you who've never used it, you've never used it before, you've only converted statements from that old DOS product. Some of you have created new statements from scratch. That's great. Some of you have never seen the product. That's interesting. Okay, we need a few more votes to just make the statistical sample. Okay, this is great. A few of you have been brave and modified an existing statement or a sample statement. That's great. Okay, excellent. So I'll just show you the mix here. A lot of you have been printing statements that someone else created for you. So presumably you've been printing those statements, and now you'd like to make some adjustments to them, or your management or board of directors said, "Oh, can you change the statement so it looks like this, or includes different departments," or all of those kind of results. So we'll show you, hopefully, a little bit how that works. Now, we are going to spend most of our time today actually in the financial reporter. So we won't be watching just a PowerPoint presentation. But one nice thing about PowerPoint is you make the screens nice and big, so I can show you some of the buttons a little bit larger. These are the buttons on the financial reporter that are very specific to the financial statement designer. And the first one is buttons for controlling the fiscal period. So let me just bring up the financial reporter. Now, most of you are using the Adagio General Ledger. So the Adagio General Ledger launches like all the Adagio modules. And I launched the financial reporter off the toolbar button. So most of you will have been familiar with a screen that looks like this, and you can see the toolbar buttons across the top. Now, for those of you who are using Adagio FX, and there's certainly quite a few of you, almost a quarter of the audience are using Adagio FX. I'm just going to launch Adagio FX and show you how you would get the data into Adagio FX. So here's the logon screen, and you log in typically with a user ID of SIS and a password of SIS. And you'll see that the buttons are very similar from what's in the Adagio General Ledger, but this button is different, the Retrieve button. Now, if you needed to get the data, first of all, you have to create a data space, and you can create the data wherever you would like. I'll create a new data set. I'll call it Demo. It says, do you want to create this Adagio FX data? Yes, I do. I need to know if I'm going to be running multi-currency, whether I want common tables. And so you can typically just click yes and answer this question. Do you require a 12 or a 13 fiscal period ledger, and when does the fiscal calendar start? Now, you can just take these defaults, because when you retrieve data into Adagio FX, it will pick up a fiscal calendar from the data set that you're retrieving. And you can just enter any company name that you want here. Again, it will be overwritten at the time that you retrieve the data. And here's your current fiscal year and the prior fiscal year. Adagio FX supports reporting on the current year and the prior year. Those of you running Adagio Ledger 9.0 know that you can report up to 10-year comparative in the financial reporter. And we expect to make that feature available in Adagio FX in an upcoming release. Okay, so now we have a completely empty general ledger, and we need to click on the Retrieve button. Now, you can retrieve from several different types of databases. I'm going to retrieve from, as you can see here on the Retrieve dialog, I can retrieve from Simply or QuickBooks or Adagio or just Microsoft Small Business Accounting. I'll retrieve an Adagio database. There's my company profile. And there will be some options down here. If you were retrieving from Simply Accounting, it would be asking you for your login user ID and password. You can remap the transactions to a different fiscal calendar if you're retrieving from Simply Accounting or QuickBooks. You can combine multiple data sets and change the departments that are used. So you can use appending to append multiple data sets into the same report. And then when you click on the Retrieve button, you'll see that it creates a data space and then loads the general ledger data, all the transactions if you want, the departments, names, the fiscal calendar. And when you come back to this screen, you'll see that you have a chart of accounts loaded. So from this point on, you would launch the financial reporter and you're off to the races. So that's the only difference between Adagio FX and the general ledger. In the Adagio general ledger, I enter batches and post batches in order to get the data into the general ledger. And then I'm in the financial reporter. So the financial reporter has a set of toolbar buttons across the top. You will have seen them before. There's a normal menu, a Windows menu, but New, Open, Save to Disk, Print, Print Preview. The little piece of paper allows you to change the paper orientation from portrait to landscape, which is useful if you're doing a multi-column comparative. Zooming in and out, the Excel Direct button, cut, copy, and paste, find and replace. These toolbar buttons can be moved around. You'll see that I have my formatting toolbar button over on the left-hand side. I can also park it up here. You should park these in a convenient place. I like my formatting button over on the left-hand side because it doesn't matter what screen resolution I'm running at. It's always accessible. But bold, italic, underline. You'll be familiar from these excuse me, of these toolbar buttons based on your experience with Excel. Now, I'm just going to open an existing financial statement to show you how some of these buttons work. These two buttons here control what fiscal calendar you are, what fiscal period you are presenting the data for, and you can choose any arbitrary period, and you'll notice that as I choose a different fiscal period, the dates are changing and the amounts are changing. In Adagio Ledger, I have a drop-down fiscal calendar because I can present data for multiple years. In Adagio FX, I only have a drop-down for the period itself because there's always the current period and the prior period. So that's what those drop-downs do, and they will change the numbers being presented for you. You can suppress the inactive accounts. Now, these are accounts that have no, that have a zero balance. This is suppress rows on the financial statement where the numbers being presented sum to zero. You can also suppress the zeros themselves, and I'll just show you how these two buttons work. So here I have some rows that have no activity in them. And if I take this button and suppress the inactive rows, you'll see that they get suppressed off the those rows get hidden off the financial statement. The next button turns zeros to spaces, and you can see that happen here in this space and this space and this space. So I can make zeros show as spaces, and that's mostly used where you have a financial statement that shows the debits on the left and the credits on the right, like a trial balance might do that, or there's some presentation styles where the debits are on the left and the credits are on the right. If you're in the general ledger, not Adagio FX, you can include provisionally posted numbers. Similarly, if you're in the in Adagio Ledger, you can post year-end figures to a specific bucket, a period 14, if you will, and you can choose to present the financial statements including or excluding those figures. If you've retrieved from Simply Accounting or QuickBooks, that concept doesn't exist. And the Adagio General Ledger also allows you to mark a GL account as inactive, which allows you to suppress inactive accounts, which is slightly different than accounts that have no activity or whose balance at the end of the period is zero. Okay, so back to our PowerPoint, provisionally posted, and the year-end adjustments. Now, these next two buttons, expand and collapse, are only turned on if you have a financial statement that's a smart sheet. And I'm going to talk a little bit about smart sheets, but you can, if you have a smart sheet, which means that the cell in A1 says the word smart sheet, then you have the option of expanding or collapsing the sheet. Now, if I collapse the sheet, I get a single row that shows me the sum of all the revenue accounts. I'll just make this column just a little bit bigger. Now, a smart sheet has a particular structure. It has commands in column A and account ranges in column B. One of the commands is a range command, and it says I want to see all the accounts in the range 4,000 to 49.99. And when I hit the expand button, all those accounts will be shown to me. And when I collapse it down, I get a single summary account. So that's what these expand and collapse buttons do. If I get rid of the range command over here in column 1, when I expand the sheet, this stays as a single summary. So that's the basic function of a financial statement, nice and straightforward. Put the commands in column A, and I can put those commands in by right mouse clicking and saying, okay, put dot range in there. Now I get the individual accounts, or collapse it down. If I get rid of the word Smart Sheet, I'll expand the sheet. I'll get rid of the Smart Sheet word. Then those two buttons get disabled, so I can no longer expand and collapse the sheet, and it's essentially locked in its expanded form. Okay. And finally, I have the ability to show the figures consolidated for the whole organization or for a particular department. And you can see that when I turn off the consolidation, I get a drop-down with all my departments listed. So over here, I can toggle the consolidation on or off, and I can choose a specific or individual department. Now, when you're designing a financial statement, you often want to see your chart of accounts, see what accounts make up a range. So there's a view menu here that allows you to choose to view your chart of accounts. And here's the chart of accounts broken up by balance sheet, income statement, and retained earnings. And underneath you can see the departments. If I go into my income statement, I can see the departments that make up that particular account, that are used in that particular account. There's all account and departments. And you'll notice that if you look very closely, the account is separated from the department with a dash. And that's the general structure of how you specify the account department segment, account number dash department. So I can view my chart of accounts and see what accounts I have in my chart. I'll close this view. I can also view account groups and see the sections of the financial statement that my accounts exist on, my assets, liabilities, income, and expenses. Now, the ranges that you get here may not be accurate, and you can edit them by asking to see the properties and typing in whatever ranges you want. So I could say this is 4,000 to 4,800. So I can do that. Or I can say, I'll just clear this range, and I can bring up my chart of accounts. And I can drag and drop my account ranges from here. Now you'll notice I picked up account 4,000 and then account 4,100, and if you'll look closely, those numbers were separated by a comma. Now, if you need to specify two accounts that are discontiguous, you separate them by a comma. If you need accounts that are in a range, like from 4,200 to 4,240, you just shift-click to highlight them, and they'll be separated with a colon. So account ranges that are contiguous are separated by a colon. Account ranges that are discontiguous are separated by a comma. And you can keep specifying these for as long as you want, up to a limit of 255 characters. And the financial reporter is smart. If I now picked up account 4010, which I'd missed before, and drop it here, it realizes that you've actually picked up all the accounts in the range. So I can easily go from here to here, and that's the shift-click operation, multi-selecting them all. And I can control-click off some accounts. I'll control-click off this one, then drop those over here. And you can see it builds the appropriate range for you. And of course, you may choose properties. You may choose actually to make the range $49.99. You would choose ranges beyond what your actual chart of account is, so that if someone adds an account, you automatically pick up that account in the range. Okay, so this is a way of setting up your groups. We're not going to talk too much about the groups today, but they can be used to create quick and what I would call quick and dirty financial statements. If you're asked on an ongoing basis to quickly set up an ad hoc income statement to show some specific figures, there's an easy way to do that using drag and drop off the account groups. You can also look at the account, your list of departments. Statement groups are a feature available in FX Pro and in the Adagio ledger financial statement that allows you to have ranges of groups that you print all at once without just loading them and printing them and sending them off to the printer. We'll talk about that next week. So here's our financial statement, income statement 1, and I can already present this for any particular period, and I can show it for any particular set of departments. Okay. So how did we get here? Well, I'm going to show you, first of all, how to create a formula, and we'll do this for, first of all, you're used to creating formulas. You've all used formulas in Excel. You've all used the equal sum formula. So equal sum, you open, that's the special name of they're called functions. They have special names, and they return values. And the sum function takes an arbitrary set of cells on your spreadsheet with the cell references separated by dots or by commas, and it goes and finds the values in all of those cells and adds them all together and returns the result into a cell. And the financial reporter, being a full spreadsheet, has functions that does the equivalent, like sum, but also it has functions that will go and get data from your chart of accounts and from your general ledger. And one of them is the function GL amount, and the GL amount takes two arguments. It takes, first of all, a field code or a specification code, and M here means you want the current month's net posted figure, Y is year to date, LY is last year, BAL is the current balance in the account, and then it takes an account number or account-department range, or a range of accounts and departments. So if I wanted to say get the year-to-date figures for all accounts that lie between $4,000 and $49.99 and departments 100 to 200, that's the formula that I would use. Now, you can also, instead of specifying the department in the account range, you can ask it to pick up the department from the toolbar. Remember, on the toolbar, I can show the statement consolidated for the whole company or for a specific department. So this placeholder here, this little left-leaning quote, single quote, sometimes referred to as the tick, that says go and get the department number off the toolbar. So it's a backwards apostrophe. It's to the left on a normal keyboard. It's to the left of the 1 on the left-hand side, on the top row of your keyboard. On some laptop keyboards, it'll be near the space bar, I think. I have to go and check my Toshibas. But they hide it away. It's the leftmost single quote. Now, normally, we recommend strongly against putting the account ranges, hard-coding them in the formula itself. It's better to put them in cell references, and it's a spreadsheet, so anything that you can put in the function itself, in the formula, you can pick up from a cell reference. So having said this, let's see how this would work. And you can see, I'll collapse this. Okay, let's start with a new function. So I want to get GL amount, and I want the for account 4,000 to 49.99. I'm just going to move that over to this column over here. So that's my revenue accounts, and that's the total for this period. You can see as I change the period, the numbers are changing. Now this is a revenue account, so in Adagio, credits are negative, so I need to change the sign of this. And I did that just by putting a minus sign in front of the formula. See, just put a little minus sign in front of the formula. That changes the sign because you're multiplying the number by -1. So there's the GL amount for all of those formulas. Now, I said before that you really, you shouldn't hard code the numbers. You should put the numbers, I'll put the numbers here in $9 here. And then I'll put 4,000 to 49.99 here. So now I can see the account range. And of course I need to be able to go and get the description. So I'll go and get the description, GL description. I'm going to call this income, and I'm going to indent it 3, and I want okay. And I'm going to make this a smart sheet by putting this in cell A1. And I'll put the range command here so that the buttons are turned on. And then when I expand the sheet, I get all of my individual account descriptions and their net posted for the month. Okay. So for how many of you did that go too fast? Let's just see how many of you are still listening to the webinar. Raise your hands if you'd like to see that happen again. A lot of people put their hands up. Okay, so let's do this whole thing again from scratch. Now I can use the undo button here with Control Z, or I can just take the whole sheet and we'll do it from scratch again. So here's an empty sheet. Here, GL amount. I want to see the net changes. Spec code is M. And I want to do that for the accounts from 4,000 to 49.99, although I'm going to actually put the account ranges in B9. So over here in B9, I'm going to say 4,000 to 49.99. Now remember, credits are negative, so I need to put a minus sign in front of this. And I'll format it. There we go. And I want to see all the accounts in the range. I'm doing this in a slightly different order to show you it doesn't actually matter what order you do this. I'm going to turn this into a smart sheet. I'm using the right mouse button to bring up the context menu to put smart sheet up here, but I can just type it .smart sheet if I like typing, and you'll see that now the buttons are turned on. And as soon as I've said to the financial reporter this is a smart sheet by putting the word smart sheet in cell A1, then I can right mouse click and say put the range in here, and when I expand the sheet I get all the individual net posted. But I'd like the account descriptions in here. So if I looked into help for under account description, there's quite a good help here. Account description. So here's the account references that you can get, and I could go in and search for the words account description, Adagio, equal functions, GL. If you need it, it's here. GL description, default text, indent, account range. So I want GL description. I want the default text to be income. I want it indented 3 if you're showing me the account descriptions themselves, and I want you to pick up the account range from B9. Oops. Okay, so now if I'm collapsed it says income, and if I expand it I see the individual account descriptions. Now I can suppress the inactive accounts here, so when I refresh the sheet they all disappear. So here's my income statement, or income accounts, and I've got the beginnings of an income statement here. Now, here on this formula, we hard-coded the M specification for net posted for the current month. And just like I can reference the account range over on column B, I can reference the specification code I want. I can put that in another cell. So I'll put M over here, and I'll say that instead of coding this in the formula, I'll say that I want this to be in D7. Now what's the benefit of doing that? Well, that means that if I change this code to be year-to-date, I get the year-to-date numbers, or this is the current month number, Q for quarter, S for half, Y for year-to-date. You get the idea. Now, how did I know about what codes that I could put there? M for current month, Q for quarter, Y for year-to-date. Well, hopefully it's because we've made them somewhat easy to remember, but you can always come up here and say, I want to see the account data, and this will show you all the different codes that you can put in a particular formula. You can ask for the selected period or quarter or half or year or any specific period. You can ask for balances as well as the net posted change. You can ask for this year or last year for the previous. In fact, in the general ledger, you can ask for the same period any number of years in the past by just putting the number of years you want in the past in front of the specification code. So I can say I want this from 2 years ago, and that's the number, year-to-date number from 2 years ago. So if I wanted to do a 3-year comparative, I can just take this column. I can duplicate it again, make that 1 year ago, 2 years ago. Now I have a 3-year comparative. These are the 3 year-to-date numbers for the current year, the prior year, and the year before. If I expand out, there's the various numbers in those accounts. Okay. Just going to lower everyone's hands here. There. Okay, so this is beginning to take some shape. I would like, what else would I like to do here? Well, I would like to put in the total. I'll put some titles in here. I'll make this income section, and I'll put income. I'll bold this one and bold that. Now, if I expand this sheet and print it out, I get a whole white piece of paper. I get a whole blank page here, and that's a bit disconcerting. And I'll just show you why that is. If I zoom out, I'll zoom way out here. And this is where you discover that you're not running in Excel, because Excel doesn't show you the end of the universe. In the financial reporter, there's an end of the universe. And this empty space is the edge of the sheet. And the financial reporter assumes that everything that you have here is to be printed. And now in Excel, when you open up the Excel sheet in Excel, in the current version of Office 2007, you have 1 million rows and you have 65,000 columns, and you have to be a little careful about where the printable area of the sheet is. In the financial reporter, it assumes that any columns that you have, you want to print. So it's trying to print the whole thing, and the reason you're getting all that white space is, well, you've got some empty columns, so we don't want these columns here. I'm going to take these columns, and I'm going to delete them. Like that one, hide when printed. I'll zoom back to a normal space. And now everything fits nicely on one page. Now, these specification codes here are sometimes called column specs, and that's one of the commands that I can put on the row, and you'll see if I call it a column spec row, it's automatically marked this text hide when printed. That's why it's in light blue. And hide when printed is an attribute that exists in the financial reporter that says, when I print this out, I don't want you to show me this particular row. So when I print preview this, you'll see that that row with the specifications across the top is automatically suppressed off the statement that we're building. So and you'll also notice that these two columns, when I print this out in the print preview, I lose the columns that have the commands, and I lose the columns that have the account ranges printed. Now, sometimes you may want to see the account ranges. An easy way of doing that is to right mouse click in B1 and say, put show accounts in here. And then even though it's a smart sheet, you'll see the account numbers that are being referenced on the financial statement. Remember I said, if you need it, it is there. So here's our financial statement beginning to take shape. I'm going to, I've got an income section here. And this income statement, this income section, just sums everything across my entire income. So say I wanted this to be product sales and product revenue and service revenue is what I really would like here. Oh, I want a total. I'm going to put a total here. Let's break this out first. Okay. So I want this to be product sales and service sales. So I'll duplicate this row. I'll edit this to say product sales. And I want this to say service revenue. Okay. And I want this to be a total of these two numbers. Now, I know that the account ranges are wrong and the figures are wrong at the moment. I can come back and fix the account ranges in a minute. But let's put the total in here while I have some numbers. And there is an auto sum button, but it works a little differently than in Excel. I click on the cell where I want the total, and then I click on the sum button, and I highlight the cells that I want summed, and then I click on the auto sum button again, and it'll put the total, a formula for the total automatically for me in that cell space. So I want this to be dollars and bold. And I'll copy this, and I'll paste it here and paste it there as my totals take shape. The other thing I wanted to do is I wanted to make this, at the moment, this is a pretty small print, Arial. We'll change this in a minute or two. So I've got my two rows here, and I can delete the account range and bring up my chart of accounts and say, as long as I've got a smart sheet up here, I can say revenues for consulting. Well, that's a service revenue, and I'm just dragging and dropping from my chart of accounts onto my spreadsheet. And then revenues from job costing, well, that's a service revenue too. And product sales and everything like all of this, that's product sales revenue. And then database repair revenue, quite an odd sample company here that sells sporting equipment and does database repairs, but that's a service revenue. And if I open this column, you'd see that this discontiguous range here is separated by a comma. And then we have some freight. Is freight a product or a service? In this, we'll say it's a service over here. And then we have some sales discounts. Those are taken on products only. So there's my my two sections taking shape, product sales and service revenue, and I have my total. And when I expand, I see all the individual details here. But I may want my product sales to stay as a single, or to get broken. We'll keep that as a single summary row. So I just get rid of dot range here, and then when I expand the sheet, the service revenue expands, but the product revenue stays as a single line item on my statement. Okay. what would I like to put in here? I'd like to put in a company name. I'll insert a formula, company information, company name, auto size row, and I'd like this. I'll center this across the whole. I don't know, maybe not. I'll just do it across these three. And I want across these three. I want this to say income statement. And I want to put the period in here, so we'll insert a row. Cover these cells. And I'm using the right mouse button to bring up this context menu. And you'll see that there's lots of nice formulas in here as of, I don't really want it to say as of for the period ending. And now you'll see up here, you see this complicated formula? You can type this in if you would like, but it's much easier to click on the right mouse button and pull up the formula that you want. And these dates are all self-adjusting. If I go back to November or December, you can see that all the numbers are changing, and my statement is all nicely formed. I'll expand the sheet, and I'll take a look at this. Okay, this is beginning to take some shape. I'm going to make the text a little bit bigger, so I'll go to my styles and say that I would like the standard style to be 10-point Arial. Yeah, that's a little easier to read. And we'll make these columns all the same size. And I want a title here. There's my fiscal period ending date. Copy, paste, paste. Bear with me half a second. Period ending date, that's what I want. Copy, paste, paste. And I'd like these bolded and centered. Like that. And I'll put in a little narrow column here. Print preview. Okay. So this is looking quite nice. I can now take this and do the expense section just by highlighting these, copying, and pasting. And then I'll use search and replace to change all occurrences of income to expenses. And in this, cost of goods and admin expenses. And of course, I don't like these ranges over here, so I'll bring up my chart of accounts again. And I'll pick up cost of sales. Everything over here. And all the admin fees. Over here. Oh, I have to change the sign. So I'll just get rid of that. And copy. Paste it there. Paste it there, paste it there, and when I expand the sheet, I see all my, and I'll suppress the inactive accounts. There we go. Here's a 3-year comparative income statement. Okay. Just to make this a little prettier, over here I'm going to put my company logo. Adagio text. There's my logo. And having done this, this statement is now ready to go. I just save it away, save as, give it a name. And next month I just open it and print it. So this actually, we built this statement pretty much from scratch. And if you felt that this went pretty quickly, which it did, then this webinar will be recorded and will be posted on our website, so you can go back and watch the individual steps and perform each step with your own data. But another way of getting to a good financial statement is to take a look at the statements that we ship as with the sample data. Just open up the sample data and take a look at each statement. Now I'm actually working in the sample data here, so you'll see all these different statements here. I'm just going to talk about these briefly to show you the kind of functionality that is available. For instance, if I wanted to look at a trial balance, here's a simple trial balance that all you need to do is fill in your account ranges: assets, liabilities, shareholders' equity, retained earnings, revenue, and expenses. Put your own account ranges here, and then when you expand the sheet, you'll see a trial balance worksheet that you can use for checking your figures. It prints quite nicely. And you would format it for your particular chart of accounts by clearing the account ranges and then bringing up your chart of accounts and saying, okay, we need the assets. That's everything from here to okay, so all of these. And then liabilities, accounts payable, $29.99. Liabilities, shareholders' equity is paid in capital, and retained earnings, revenue is everything from $4,000 to $49.99. Expenses, $5,000 to $8,000, and then the retained earnings down here goes back to there. And then I have this available to me. So that's one type of sheet that you can put together. Other samples here may be useful if you do if you make use of budgets or departments. Here's a this financial statement called Budget Forecast shows you the revenue and expenses, and then across the sheet shows you for each period the actual figures. So we're in period 2 here for 2007. It shows you the actual for 2 periods and the budget for each period going forward and a projection of where you're going to land. And as you go through the calendar, March, April, May, it replaces the budgets with the actual and shows you whether you're going to hit your year's budget and what the variance will be, so that you can go to the department managers and say you're spending too quickly, or, well, that's all you ever say to a department manager. You guess it's possible you could say you haven't spent enough money, but I've never actually found people who have trouble spending money. And you can print this out every month. Just go and print it out. And if you'd like this for your organization, just open up the budget forecast, collapse it down, highlight column B, clear column B, and then bring up the chart of accounts, your own chart of accounts, and pick the account ranges that you want to drop into the various sections of the financial statement. So that's another way of making use of the almost 60 financial statements that we provide standard within Adagio. You just come up here, File, Import Specification, and then browse to the sample data. Now the sample data will be installed under your SoftTrack subdirectory. So SoftTrack. And then if you're in the general ledger, it'll be SoftTrack Ledger SAM data. And if you're using Adagio FX, it'll be SoftTrack AFWin SAM data. And you'll see all the specifications here that we ship standard. And you can choose one of them. Here's another budget forecast. This one just does the year-to-date, the remaining budget, and a projection on what the year's budget's going to be. And you can see what the variance is, how you're doing on a year-to-date basis. And the nice thing about this, of course, is that I can print this for any specific department, and I can just churn these out at the end of any given month. Just while before we wrap up for the day, I'm just kind of curious about whether you use departments within your organization. Do you actually use departments? If you could just take a second and click on the yes or no, we're kind of curious to know whether any of our users actually make use of departments, and whether we should concentrate on improving the department processing here. Oh, yeah, okay. A large number of you, over 3/4 of you, are using departments, so that's great to see, and hope that you'll have an opportunity to make use of some of the statements that we ship standard. A few of you, especially those of you who are using Adagio FX with Simply Accounting, may have financial statements already set up in Excel, and I'm just going to close this down here. Okay, so here's another way of getting your statements in is to open the financial statement in Excel. So open up Excel. I'm just opening up Excel here. So here's Excel, and get your financial statement open in Excel. So here's my financial statement. Of course, I don't know, these numbers are probably calculated or typed in or coming off a trial balance. And then go to the financial reporter in Adagio FX or in the GL and say, I want to import from Excel Direct. And you'll see it brings the financial statement across and brings across all the formatting and the formulas. Now from this, you could go through and turn this into a smart sheet and a statement that would print out every month. You'd have to make some adjustments. These numbers, of course, come across as constants. You're going to have to make them formulas, GL amount formulas, to make this all work. But I'll just do a couple of rows here. I'll insert a row. I want to make this column spec. This is going to be my month-to-date figure. This is going to be my year-to-date. This is going to be GL title. Oh, E should be E. Selected period. Copy. Paste. And then I want this to be GL amount. Okay, I want product revenue 4,002. Change the sign. Copy, paste, paste, paste. So now you just go through and put these formulas in. You only have to do this once. It doesn't take very long. The nicest thing is that all of the formatting is preserved, and there's formulas to go and get the department. Here it just says consolidated departments, but I can go and say insert department. I want to see the department description here. All that's on the screen is the quick poll. Yeah, someone just came in. I forgot to hide the show that most of you are using departments. I'm sorry about that. Okay, let's go back and okay. Let's go do this again. So, find the results. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay, that's why everyone has their hands up. I'll lower everyone's hands. Okay. Here we are in Excel with a financial statement that I have formatted in Excel. So I open this statement up in Excel with it on as the active sheet. Then I go to the financial reporter, and starting with an empty sheet, I choose from the File menu, Import from Excel Direct. And that will bring the Excel sheet across into the financial statement with all of the formatting. And 2 columns set up to put in your Smartsheet commands and your account ranges. So now I have to put in some formulas because the numbers come across just as hard-coded values because Excel doesn't know how to get the information out of your general ledger. So I have to add some commands to turn this into a spreadsheet. This is going to be my month-to-date column, and this is going to be my year-to-date column. I want this to be the title for whatever specification code I have in the column spec row. So that would be select a period, paste. And then I want the GL amount formula of the specification code that will be in E9, and the account range is going to be in $B13. Let's just put some accounts in here. There, so I get some numbers. And I notice that I've got the formula has the wrong sign, so I'll change the sign, and I'll copy and paste that here, and paste it there, and paste it there. And now my my formulas, you see the totals are working, but my account ranges are coming from the GL, and I can tell that by changing the fiscal calendar here, and you'll see the numbers changing. So slowly you go and bring the chart of accounts in, and once you've built this statement once, next month you just open it and print the statement. Now the nice thing, one of the things you may not realize, of course, is as you create one of these statements, if you wanted to see what accounts actually make up this $230,000 number here, you can just double-click on the number, and it'll show you all of the accounts and departments that were summed to get to that particular number on your financial statement. Okay, so this is the sum of all the accounts and departments. And if you're curious about a particular number, like the sales of the bike equipment, you can double-click on that number and see what's being posted throughout the year. And you can double-click on a particular period and see the underlying GL detailed transactions. This is true regardless of the source of your general ledger data. And you can look at the transactions for a particular period, and you can click on the Excel Direct button here, and you can drop those transactions into Excel if you want. So the drill down in the financial reporter is a very powerful tool, allows you to quickly see what transactions make up a particular value. You can also just right mouse click on a number and say, show me all of the transactions that go into that number that get me to that number. So see all these transactions here. I could ask to see, I'll drop these in Excel. And now I could ask to see all the transactions from posting sequence 141. Those are all the transactions that were posted as part of that particular day end. Okay. For those of you who are still running Office 2003, whenever you hit an Excel, Office 2007 has this concept of lists that are you can instantly filter. It alone is worth the price of moving to Office 2007. A very, very, very powerful feature, and a lot of the Office 2007 got lost in the Vista kerfuffle. So let's just check to see if I've talked about formulas. I've talked about and how they're built. We've demonstrated creating a financial statement from scratch by typing in the formulas, also by opening up previously created statements and changing the chart of accounts, and also we've taken a sheet from Excel and pulled it into the financial reporter, and hopefully that gives you some different ideas of how you can get to your sheets, and you've seen enough working with the formulas to be comfortable. So a couple of things, there were some questions that people posted when they registered. By the way, whenever you register for one of these webinars, you can post any questions you want in the little comment box, and we'll make sure that they get covered. Someone wanted to know everything necessary to prepare statements and schedules, so hopefully this helped. And to the extent it moved very quickly, we'll have the webinar posted on our website in a couple of days, and we would, you can always go back and review the webinar, download the webinar, and review the different steps that I went through. And will a program, someone asked about FX working with any accounting software. You can import the figures into Adagio FX from an Excel spreadsheet. You have to format a spreadsheet to account, department, description, but you can then use the financial reporter to create the statements off the data that you've imported. Okay, so we have a few minutes just before we call it a day. So what I'll do is I'll lower everyone's hand, and if you have a particular question or something that you would like to see, or have a question about something that we covered today, if you could just raise your hand and I'll unmute you. So Irene raised her hand. Hopefully I'll unmute you, Irene, and if you have a microphone, then you can ask away. You're on the air. Now, my guess is that Irene doesn't have a microphone, because you need a microphone in order to talk to us. So the other thing that you can, I'll just go through the questions. Let me mute Irene again. Okay. So in the questions that we have here, how do I save a statement that's being created from a statement as a template so I can use the same format for another client that has no prior financial statement? Okay. That's a question from Nancy. So you can open statements from any subdirectory, and you'll see also in the general ledger there's save as template. Now, if you save a financial statement as a template, then when you open the statement, you can see these will be saved as financial statement templates, and you'll be able to see them when you, I'll just put views. If it's question mark. Usually, I just don't know why this isn't working, you would see a picture of the statement that the template is made up of. So you can also just go to any subdirectory that has the financial statements that you have formatted and just open them up and say, okay, I don't want that particular account, I want a different set of accounts. And then when you say save save it as a new name, save as, put it in the subdirectory with your data, and now that financial statement exists for your new client. Okay. So, Philip, when adding accounts to the financials from the start, from the chart of accounts, is there any way to identify accounts that have not been assigned? Okay. Yes. Okay. So new. I'll bring up my account groups. I'm going to create. This is another way of creating financial statement is to use the account groups and drag and drop off the account group tree. So I want to see the balances here. Okay, so here's a balance sheet, and 2.606 and 2,245. So here's a balance sheet that doesn't balance. That's one of the reasons I did this. Is that so? Normally, this causes panic in the accounting community. A balance sheet that doesn't balance. But there's a nice way to figure out what's going on. You bring up your chart of accounts. So here's all my chart of accounts. While I have my balance sheet open here that doesn't balance, and I right mouse click in the chart and say verify this account, and you can see all of the green dots. Those are accounts that are referenced, and the accounts that are not referenced will have big red X's on them. So now you can go through, I'll collapse the sheet, current assets, work in progress and inventory, those are current assets, and stocks and bonds and promissory notes and goodwill and patents, those are also current assets, and fixed assets. So like those patents and trade, I'll add that to my fixed assets list. And then if I reset this and verify, now I get green dots in front of every account. So my my balance sheet balances. Okay, so bring up your chart of accounts, view chart, right mouse click, and when it first comes up, it'll have these little magnifying glasses here. Right mouse click and say verify, and it'll turn all the accounts that it found in here to green dots. Now, in the general ledger, say that I referenced inventory twice. So I've got 1,400 referenced twice on this account. Recent. Then, when you verify, you'll see a blue exclamation mark next to accounts that are referenced twice. This feature is coming in the next release of Adagio FX, but in the GL, this account is referenced twice, and I can right mouse click and ask it to highlight the multiple cells, and it'll show you on your financial statement the ranges where the account has been referenced twice, and you can figure out where it should be removed from. Okay, I only see 3 sample reports in our Adagio. How do I get all 60 plus reports that you should say there? The sample data should be installed. You could reinstall the product just asking it to install the sample data, or you can go to the internet and let me bring up my Internet Explorer. And hang on a second. Okay, so here's Internet Explorer. And there's a website called greatstatements.com, www.greatstatements.com. And this has a whole set of examples of financial statements that you can download for use in Adagio FX or in the GL. You can also get to that website off the Help About menu in the Finance Reporter, sample financial statements at greatstatements.com. Okay. Can you add separate account groups, for example, product revenue versus service revenue? Can I drag and drop these from account groups instead of from the chart of accounts? So the question is from someone who's looked at these account groups, can I add separate ranges? So here's my account groups for my income statement, income, revenue, and expenses. I can go in here and create a new range, and this is going to be product revenue, and it's on the income statement, and it's revenue, and see, it gets added here. I also want to summarize to the account, and I'll put a total on line, and I can move it up and down like this, and then I can put my account ranges in here. So I can add sections in here. If I always break out a section, then it's worthwhile adding a section to the account group. But as I showed in the earlier presentation, taking a basic row like current assets and making it into multiple rows is as easy as saying, okay, I want this to be cash, and then I want this to be accounts receivable. Oops, sorry. And then I'll duplicate this row, and I want this to be loans. Like that. You just keep adding the rows. So once you've dragged and dropped off the account groups into the financial report, what you discover is that there's no connection back to the account group. So you're off to the races. You can add rows, anything that you want, extra columns. The other trick here is to format the row. When you do your financial statements, just format a single row, and once you've got the row all nice, one column all nicely done, then duplicate that column across to do the prior year. So here I have a balance sheet with the current year, just the current year numbers on it. If I wanted to put last year's numbers adjacent, then I just duplicate this column and change the specification code, and now I've got a 3-year comparative balance sheet. So it's very straightforward. Always do it with one column, because you'll notice as you're duplicating that column, you're also picking up all the formatting for the column, and all the formulas work, and it makes it easy to do a multi-column report. Okay, can I drag and drop account groups? Okay, I think that is pretty much everyone's questions there. Can you show me again how to find the standard statements available in Adagio? Okay, so you come in here, File, Import Specification, or Import Workbook. Let's do Import Workbook this time. And I'm installed on Drive C in a subdirectory SoftTrack. And if I'm running from the general ledger, it'll be SoftTrack Ledger, SAM data. And that's the sample data, and all the statements begin GL exclamation mark, and they'll have the extension SAM. So let's say that we wanted to look at, I want to import this income statement, one-page income. So here's an income statement imported as a single sheet here when I print this out. It's all mostly formatted, and I just have to put my account ranges in column B. Okay, that's good. I think that kind of wraps us up. We're a little bit over. I'm sorry for the confusion leaving that poll up to a little bit too long. If there are any other questions, I'll just lower everyone's hands, and you can either type the questions into the chat box, or I'm happy to unmute your phone for, or make your microphone live if you have a microphone attached to your laptop or workstation. So any other questions from people? Going once, going twice. Well, thank you very much for devoting the hour here. I hope that, oh, someone just finished typing. In preparing a statement of changes in equity, how do I set the account ranges? Okay, how do you set the account ranges? So you set the account ranges by, if you have your statement already laid up, the account ranges will, in a smart sheet, will be in column B. What those specific account ranges are, we cannot help you because we have no idea what your chart of accounts looks like. your accountant should be able to help you in mapping your chart, taking a look at your chart of accounts, and choosing which account numbers go into the statement of changes in equity. Irene has a question. I saw the footer. Can it be changed? Yes. If you under the File menu, Header Footer, you can put specific things, fields in the header footer, and if you look closely, you'll see that we've got some placeholders. Footers, the path name, page 1 of N, 2 of N, 3 of N, and the date it was printed, and there's the worksheet that was printed from, and the day, month, and year. This is documented in the help text and in the manual. Okay. As I said, if you need it, it's there. In the financial statement, I cannot see the formula bar. Occasionally, you may inadvertently turn off a particular menu item like that. I just turned off my formula bar. Oh, I was looking for this one, the aerial one. You can come back into View, Customize, and if one has not been, if a formula bar is completely invisible, this checkbox might need to be turned on. The other thing that you might need to do is click on the Reset button. If you click on a formula bar and click on the Reset button, it will position, it'll reset all the buttons on the toolbar and position it so that it's visible. And that's a good way of finding out what's going on. There are some other settings in here, by the way. For those of you who don't like to see 0.00 for amounts, you can say replace. I want to replace 0 with a hyphen. Okay, now let's push F9. You'll see that now all occurrences of zeros on this particular statement are replaced with a little dash mark, and that's in View, Customize. View, Customize settings, what you would like the text to be. So you might not want, when you're showing for the whole organization, you might not want it to say consolidated departments. You might want it to say something else. You can change that text here. Okay. Good. I think that kind of wraps it up. I think I'm just going through. Okay. Just a quick review of the questions there. That looks great. Hope this was useful to you. For some of you, we'll see you again next week at the Intermediate Financial Reporter, and I hope that this was useful to you, and I look forward to seeing you in a virtual sense and some webinar in the future. There will be a follow-up email, and all of the webinars are posted on our website. You can find them at here's our website. You can find all of the webinars that we've offered, online webinars, webinar descriptions. All of the webinars that we've given recently are linked to here, and you can just click on the recording, right mouse click to download it to your website or to your own hard disk and listen to it at your leisure, or just stream it directly to your desktop and review the material at a pace that's useful to you. I should let you know that there is a hands-on financial reporter training manual that's available through your Adagio reseller as a step-by-step with sample data on how to format and how to build financial statements in the financial reporter. I believe the cost is $130 for the manual and the data. A step-by-step self-paced study section. If you are interested, contact your Adagio consultant. They have access to this and can help you get the data all installed and start you working away at this. I want to thank you again. If there's any suggestions that you have for how we can make this product work better for you, don't hesitate to drop us a line. My email address is abates, A-B-A-T-E-S, @softtrack.com. And just remember, I'm not in the technical support department. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I look forward to seeing you again. Maybe I'll see some of you on my trek across Canada in October. Thanks a lot. That's it for today.